If I were to tell you that they trade out of the first, back into the second, move up in the second with it, and they already have two twos, but the Bills come out of this draft with 3 second-round picks. They draft 34, 47, and 58. You're going to feel great about that, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, they already have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. This would be a different 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. But I think the concept is, and it's something that Benjamin Solak got to with them yesterday, which was the Bills don't need to be spending flyers on 4th and 5th and 6th. These picks for them, it's not their time.
Yeah.
And the draft is not created equally for all these teams. Some teams have 10 available jobs.
That's right.
In fact, we got into it a couple weeks ago that it's something that the Rams are doing, that the Niners are doing. They leave lots of jobs open when they're in a bit of a transition, take a lot of picks, fill a lot of jobs. But those jobs run out eventually. And the Bills are in a spot where how many starting positions are available? They've got good depth in lots of spots on the roster.
They've always, I think, done a good job at having good depth. And I think more so now than ever, they've got, at the positions they need players at, depth's not the problem.
Right.
Corner, they don't need a 4th-round corner. They've got Dane Jackson. They've got Jamarcus Ingram. They've got depth. What they need is that starter. They need a higher-level guy. And all you got to do is just rewind to the end of the Super Bowl, the first week post-Super Bowl. Everyone's attention back now on the draft. The conversation is, if you're not in the top 12 through 55, not a big difference between those guys. It's going to be preference. It's going to be scheme fit that slot those guys there. So if that is the opinion of not just the draft, media community, but also NFL GMs and college scouting departments, then finding your way to as many picks in the top 65 as you can for a team that needs guys that can be more plug and play rather than flyers, I agree. They've done a good job of giving themselves the assets required to approach teams that need the depth to say, hey, let's move back. And, this could be an interesting draft that I know people, if they trade out of the first round, I think it'll likely be looked at as a negative initially. Mm-hmm. But I think that the reasoning would be sound.
Yeah. It's funny because the round breaks are kind of what define trading out of the round, obviously. You're not trading from 13 out of the first round. To trade 30 to the second round is to drop 3 spots, which is something they did last year. They dropped twice. They traded down twice. And the second time they traded down, it's like they traded down what? A spot? Like, okay, that's fine. We'll do that. I'm thinking about, you said 65 there. Benjamin Solak, his number was 100. Get as many picks in the top 100 as you can. What you're looking for are, it's funny, like with a 7-round draft, the NBA has what, a 2-round draft? And where you start to expect possible contributors. The NFL draft is the one where you get pretty deep, and a 5th or a 6th round pick making your team and making a difference, it's not crazy. I wouldn't count on it, but it's not nuts. Khalil Shakir has done that, Matt Milano. In fact, there are plenty of Bills fans that might be more comfortable with how the Bills draft in the later rounds than they do in the early rounds. And that might just come down to expectation, what you expect to get from a guy versus what you do get. Their first-round picks the last few years, Elam, of course, we know that story. Kincaid it just hasn't really delivered on the level we thought it would. Rousseau, nice player, worth extending, right? They've done fine. But what we're looking for is 3 to 4 picks in the top 100 so that I've got not just scratch-off tickets, but someone that could grow into someone great. What you really want here is great players. Not just guys to fill jobs, but other players to make the NFL top 100. And no more about how nobody makes the Pro Bowl, and that's good because, they're under the radar. They need players that around the league get respect because of how good they are, and especially on defense. And right now, their household name on defense is Benford. And past that, probably Rousseau, Milano. They've got nice pieces. But they've got openings, and what they have a need for is a game wrecker of sorts. That's why I like what they did in free agency. Both Bosa and Michael Hoyt have maybes to them. I can envision a scenario where it works really well and they can move them around, or they can just get Bosa back to what he was. Give him time. There's no rush here. This team's going to win 12 games, whether you play or not. So get your body right. And with Michael Hoyt, same thing. All right, 6 games, you're not going to be in the lineup. That's okay. I feel like we viewed Michael Hoyt as a chess piece. And I don't need to play chess in weeks 1 through 6. I need to play chess in January.
Like we were talking about last segment.
Yeah. So they've already done a good number of things to the defense with those 3-4 signings that I think look like good ideas, reasonable, high potential ceiling guys. And now, if the draft ends up being trade down in the first, I'd be fine with trading up in the first if they identify someone they really like. You're probably not going to go a crazy big cost, but trading a 4th to move up. One thing I wonder, let me pull up the draft chart, because if they were to give up one of their seconds, move to the mid-first, 20, and give up one of their seconds, how's that hit you? You're getting fewer players in the top 100, but if they have a tier break at defensive end number 2, or defensive end number 3, and that guy's there and they have a deal on the table to move up to 20 or 21, would you do it? Bean he's a guy that trades up. Last year, of course,
he's a trade-up merchant.
He
no
is.
Doubt.
And last year, while it is a trade down, it was really more of a double pick swap. They did not acquire more picks.
No.
Last year's trade down was a double pick swap. They moved up in a different round to move down in the first round.
The trade up. Yeah. That feels very I gotta know what it is.
Are there names? Last year,
Will Johnson's probably the only guy. If he dropped
to,
I just don't see it happening to 18, 20. I would be. That would be miraculous. I don't think that happens.
Put it this way: the Bills, first of their second round picks, which is going to be Minnesota's.
Yep.
So they got the Minnesota pick for Diggs.
Yep.
Ultimately, Houston had that pick. So the Bills are drafting 56th overall for trading Diggs. If you package that with their 30th pick, on the draft value chart, you can get to about 17. A little higher than you thought?
Yeah.
You're giving up a second-round pick to move 13 spots, but is there a defensive player that could fall to that range, that does fall to that range, and you're calling Arizona or Seattle? It's Arizona, Cincinnati, Seattle. If we're doing just draft value chart windows, here are your trading windows. Your second-round pick could get you to 16, 17, 18. Your other second-round pick gets you to about 2021.
Okay. I don't think it's high enough for me to get a player that's going to be just different than what I'm going to get at 30. There's not a defensive tackle, I think, that I'm like, because then, to me, a little bit, you're doing that because you're chasing a position, not necessarily a player. What you're doing is saying we have 2 corners, 2 defensive ends, and 3 defensive tackles. The 2 corners are off the board. The 2 defensive tackles are off the board. Or, 2 defensive ends are off the board. 2 of the 3 defensive tackles are off the board. If we don't get one of those groups of players, there's one guy of the 7 we've identified that are who we want. That's a scenario where I think you say that's the guy we want. We think he's one of the 7 guys, one of the 14 guys we have with first round grades, and we're now at 18.
And he's the last guy left. It's tough to envision.
It's tough to envision.
Let me put it a different way. You said you're doing that for a position, not for a player. Let's have a little fun. Let's get stupid.
I think they did that already, though, when they got burned.
Well, who's that?
They were traded up for a position. Kyrie Elam.
Right. How about I don't want to put the name out there yet. If you could have any one player in the draft, who would it be?
Like
Anyone.
You ask me right
outside
now.
of Abdul Carter would be the answer, probably, right?
Probably.
And then Travis Hunter?
Yeah.
I saw a mock draft today. Maurice Jones-Drew had Travis Hunter dropping to 7th.
Yeah, I think it's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know that I've seen him that low ever.
Is he pretty consistently across the board the number one player on people's big boards? Pretty consistently,
It's
I'd
Abdul
say?
Carter.
And him.
Usually I see Abdul Carter number 1, and then, Travis Hunter.
He's very close second.
Maurice Jones-Drew has a mock draft at NFL.com today where the Patriots at that 4th pick go offensive lineman, and they trade because they're in 3. They trade down, and they go offensive lineman, and here's Travis Hunter dropping to 7 where the Jets are, which I'm going to root against that.
Yeah, me
I
too.
hope that doesn't happen. Hunter is so interesting because, again, the dual threat thing, corner and receiver. Yesterday, Matt Harmon from Reception Perception, on the afternoon show, said he's without a doubt receiver number 1. It's not even close. Elite receiver prospect, where the rest of them, there's some nice players in here, but he is by far the number 1 receiver prospect. If he had just played receiver, he might have a chance to go in the top 10. And, of course, he's an incredible cornerback as well. So whoever gets him, it'll be so interesting to hear how they're going to treat that. Does Hunter have a preference as he's telling these teams? I'm sure they're asking him, what would you like to do? I'd like to do all of it. I can play limited receiver snaps and all the corner snaps. He's so interesting for this. And is there a spot where he could fall to where you would trade the 1st and 2 seconds to get him? Would you ever consider it? Doesn't really matter where he falls to. Would you just do that? He falls far enough where a team says, sure, you can have him for a 1st and 2 seconds. It's a big price. People get so afraid of these prices. Should they be? Should you be afraid of these prices in the same way? The Bills are drafting 30th and 28th every year.
I want to tell you I'm not afraid of the cost, but what I think it does is puts the Bills in a situation where they're not going to be able to address all of the needs they need to get with a high enough caliber player.
But isn't the whole idea of what they really, really need is somebody that's elite?
A blue chipper?
And then, sure, fill in the other spots with 4th-round guys. That's where you might get to how the 2 concepts work. One, give me 3 or 4 players inside the top 100. The other concept, give me 1 guy in the top 10 and fill out the rest and let them battle it out at camp. I got 1 elite guy.
I might make the argument that if the defense were able to really add a true elite player, where would you want that player to be? I could be sold on corner.
I think corner's the answer.
I think it could be. Well, I think it's the answer because there is undoubtedly an elite player at that position.
Sure.
Where defensive tackle, is there that elite player? I mean, Mason Graham, does anyone feel like they've got to trade up for him?
I would just think about it from the Bills' standpoint. If you could pick the best, pick your defensive position, the best corner, edge, tackle in this draft, you could pick anyone. I know Abdul Carter is absolutely worthy of that idea. But what the Bills would have in a corner, if you got the best corner in the draft, that guy plays what percentage of snaps? And he jumps into a job that is wide open, very available, a desperate need. Defensive end, I know we are still, of course, thinking the Bills should draft defensive end and get another running mate at defensive tackle, but they have more in those spots right now.
They do.
The defensive end position has 2 to 3 good ideas already.
Yeah.
I've got Rousseau, Bosa, Hoyt, if he is a defensive end, whatever he ends up being, Epinesa. I've got ideas there. At corner 2,
you've got nothing.
I'm throwing in an elite player there. I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I think so too.
Imagine you're rolling out as your corners. Again, this is dreaming stupid big, so apologies. But Benford, Travis Hunter, and Taron Johnson right now?
Yeah.
I feel like you could rush the passer and you get some pressures.
I appreciate that.
To me, it's just I'm not afraid of if you found your way to getting an elite player and had to backfill the rest instead of those 3 second-round picks or 3 or 4 guys in the top 100. If you have great depth, then you're searching for greatness. 803-0550 if you want to give us a call on this, and 1-888-550-2550. Maybe trade James Cook for a third rounder, package that in. There you go. Look for greatness. Larry in South Florida. Had so many calls on Cook yesterday on that. Hey, Larry. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I don't want to lose Cook for a third. That's for sure. I'd give him up for a second, but not a third. So you said something earlier as I was driving. I said I'm going to call. Hopefully, I'll get in before I get to work about giving up a second. But before I get to that, I hope that we stay where we are and we get the biggest, most athletic, most game-wrecking defensive tackle that's still on the board. I don't want a defensive end. We've addressed it. I still don't like Epinesa. I would love to see a trade for him and maybe get a fourth or a third, but he won't get something that high. I get it. But look at what – and I'm still afraid of Burrow in Cincinnati. I mean, I was one of those callers that called a long time ago before the playoffs, and you actually said, Larry, they're not going to make the playoffs. Don't worry about it. But yet the fear is still there. It is still there for me. And – you saw what happens to Burrow, and you saw what happened to Mahomes during the Super Bowl when you can get the defensive line to disrupt them without blitzing. Things start to unravel. More for Mahomes than for Burrow, because Burrow's got those weapons that are just deadly. But I think we need a game-changing defensive tackle, not defensive end, to disrupt the middle. However, because you guys brought this up, what is the name of that really fast receiver from Texas? What's his last name?
Isaiah Bond or Matthew Golden.
There's two fast receivers from Texas. Yeah, Matthew Golden.
Golden was the one I was thinking about. So let me ask you this, fellas. You talked about would you move up to maybe 20 to get a game-changing cornerback or defensive player? Let me ask you this. Would you give up one of your second-round picks and obviously your first to move up to, say, 18 if
to take Golden
or Golden were there?
It's Larry. Golden to me is super interesting because he. So Matt Harmon. We should get when we get back. We'll play Matt Harmon of Perception on Matthew Golden. And when I asked Joe Marino on Wednesday, hey, there's a guy on the board. Like, if he's there, if one of the receivers are there, because there's probably two receivers going in the first round. Maybe they get to 3, maybe 4, but definitely 2. McMillan, I guess Travis Hunter, so there's 3. Travis Hunter, McMillan, and Golden are probably going to go all in the first round. On Golden, who was it? Was it Joe who said, I wish he didn't run as fast because it changes the perception of what he is. Like he's a player. He can play. He's not just the speed merchant, but he ran that 40 time, which was crazy. And I asked Joe Marino, like, what about people that say he doesn't run that fast on tape? And his answer was, great. I hope they think that. I hope they think he's slow. So I think Joe Marino's on board with the idea if they went that direction.
To me, he would have to just be there at 30. That's the only scenario I'm good. Listen, if he's there at 30, I think your question was, who are the guys you're running to the podium for if they're there at 30?
Yeah.
And Golden's name was brought up at that. And I think I agree with that. And I think partially why I agree with if he's there at 30, you take him, is if he's there, that means there was probably a run on defenders.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there's probably the run on the defenders you were looking to target, and instead of and I think the scenario is you're trying to trade back, and you're not finding a deal that makes sense to you. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to take the best player available, and it's Matt Golden. So, like, I don't envision a scenario where I can even get myself and convince myself that in this draft, trading up for a wide receiver. Last year was the draft to do that. This is not the draft to trade up for a receiver, in my opinion.
And let's talk about what the Bean trade up looks like. He trades up all the time. It's like 4,
3, 4, 2.
Very small. That guy's there. And even the trades down. When you trade down, the trades up and the trades down for Bean are small. They are. Is the biggest one the one for Josh Allen, which of course would make sense. You're going up to 7 from 12. Was it where they were?
I think so. Yeah, something like that.
Every other trade is just a little move up.
Yep.
And last year when they trade down from Worthy, they go from 25 to 32, 32 to 33. You're just small moves.
Yep.
Trade up Dawson Knox, small move. Trade up Cordy Glenn. Trade up Kyer Elam. Trade up Dalton Kincaid. These are
Cody Ford.
Yeah. These are small moves. Did I say Cordy Glenn, but I meant Cody Ford?
Yes.
Sure. Yes, okay. So, as you say, Golden, right. I don't think it's a move to 18. If he made it to 26, I bet they consider it. And that's to me a tell that when they get close to a guy, we never get to see their board, so we kind of have to fill in the gaps here. It's just as simple as 5 picks away, I got to have that guy. I got to make some calls. Hold on. We're not coming out of this without that guy. We're going to trade up as long as the price isn't too crazy. So, the idea of trading up to 18, if they do that this year, the immediate question would be, why didn't you do it last year? 803-0550, our phone number. Last year they didn't have a 3. This year they don't have a 3. I had someone point out Bean loves to have a third-round pick, which is kind of a weird thing, but maybe he does. Are they going to try and move into the third round again because they love their thirds? Who knows? Draft season. It's good times. 803-0550, Geno Smith's extension. Big one for him in Las Vegas. He's been the most accurate quarterback in the NFL the last couple of years, like on charting accuracy. So I think it's a nice move for the Raiders, who might have a respectable season. But when we get back, Matt Harmon on Golden, because Larry brings up Matthew Golden, the idea of like which receiver would be right for the Bills if, in fact, they're going to go that direction. I would be surprised if they do it in the first round. The second round looks like a sweet spot. Day 2 is what's said to be the receiver day in this draft. Saw Matt Harmon tweeting about that as well. Day 2 is where it gets good, and that could be where the Bills target. They've got 2 picks on day 2, of course, both in the second round.